I'm Marty Stouffer. We all know domestic cats. We've seen them savagely attack a ball of yarn, contentedly purr on our laps, and instinctively sharpen their claws, probably on our best furniture. Yet we rarely have the opportunity to see their secretive wild cousins, the most elusive of all animals and the most deadly. It's hard to believe that the mountain lion is a not too distant relative of this tiny kitten. But these sharp claws are common characteristics of all felines, useful for catching and killing prey, retractable when the cat needs to move quickly. And these eyes, narrowed to a slit in daylight, can open wide in darkness, allowing the cats to be effective nocturnal hunters. In form and function, wild cats gracefully reach the peak of predatory evolution. But in order to fully understand the reasons for these sophisticated adaptations, we must look deeper into the hidden world of America's wild cats. Your backyard is the last place you'd ever find one of these magnificent animals. Yet the mountain lion once ranged across all of North America. Today, even humans who spend a lifetime in cougar country may never see this elusive cat. Often its prey never sees it either, until too late. Sensing danger, the mule deer buck knows to bound uphill, out of the way of ambush. But hesitation can be fatal. This is nature's way of rewarding the strong and wary. The cougar is after a meal, not a trophy, and will take what's easiest to get. Cougars seldom hunt in pairs. Here, a mother lets her male offspring prove what he's learned before she sends him off to hunt on his own. It's a wonder to me that such a perfect killing machine could ever miss. But miss they do, more often than you might think. The cougar's diet includes whatever it can catch within its territory, which may encompass as much as 100 square miles. But deer are its favorite prey. The fastidious cat rejects the hare, but bone, gristle, and meat are all necessary for nutrition. It will cover this kill and return to feed from it again. However deadly, wild cats kill for business, not for pleasure. Among cats, pleasure is a mysterious matter. Courtship may last a full 2 weeks until the female is stimulated to just the right pitch. The mating game is a strange ritual, a subdued combination of hunting and fighting tactics. The male, for instance, does not use his forepaws as he would on prey, and the female rejects him the moment after ejaculation. But they will mate over and over again while she's in heat, as often as a dozen times a day. If this union is successful, 3 months from now she will prepare a den for the new life within her, and raising a litter will take all of her time. No birth is easy, even for a wild creature. But a mother knows what to do, instinctively and immediately. Each kitten must be freed before it suffocates, and the birth sac provides protein until she can hunt again. The stimulation of her tongue cleans the kittens and helps their breathing and circulation in this sudden new world. Instinct tells these blind and helpless balls of fur where to look for their first meal. In a week, the kitten's eyes are open and they begin to explore. All wild cats see about 6 times better in the dark than we humans. Their vertical pupils expand from mere slits to absorb all possible light, creating the spooky effect of eyes that glow in the dark. Extraordinary senses evolved long ago in cats. Ultra-keen hearing, sensitive whiskers, and superior equilibrium will help the kittens learn, eventually, to move with easy stealth. Meanwhile, the mother has grown restless. She shares her territory with a bobcat. It presents no threat to her, but would welcome a meal of cougar kitten while she's off hunting. She senses that her kittens have grown old enough to attract unwelcome attention. There is a more secluded cave not far away. One by one, the kittens are moved, carried gently in her powerful jaws. For a while, at least, the kittens will be safe. Perhaps the cougar's bad reputation is based partly on its blood-curdling scream. It can't roar, but it is able to purr, a reflection of maternal contentment that I like to think of as love. Already, the brains and bodies of the kittens stir with age-old instincts. Play is very much a part of nature's plan. It teaches the kittens what their teeth and claws, their muscles and balance are all about. Before long, they will be stimulated not only to play, but to kill. Wildcats remain with their mothers longer than do most mammals. There is more to learn, for when they leave her, they will hunt alone. The mountain lion is an exceptionally adaptable cat. Originally, its habitat stretched from Alaska to Patagonia, from ocean to ocean. A sad measure of man's hatred for his fellow predators is that now, even in the most remote areas, only a few thousand remain. If the cougar is especially adaptable, the lynx is superbly specialized. In its northern habitat, it depends to a large extent on the snowshoe hare. Like its prey, it has evolved fur snowshoes and a thick coat to protect it from harsh climates. But its fur makes it vulnerable to the equally harsh world of human fashion. This female is missing one of her paws. Almost certainly she lost it to a steel trap. She's lucky to be alive and to have two males fighting to give her attention. Female lynxes automatically become infertile whenever the number of snowshoe hares declines, about every 10 years. This cycle keeps predator and prey in balance, but no one has explained just how or why it happens. The largest of American cats is so rarely seen that its presence is sometimes as much awesome legend as actual observation. A century ago, jaguars still roamed north to San Francisco. Decimated for fur, and because they're predators, few now venture this side of the Mexican border. As stealthy in the water as on land, its water-going ways give it added places to hunt, and its territory is not limited by river boundaries. Wild cats evolved millions of years ago as successful predators. Intelligence was as necessary then as tooth and claw, and has been refined by wild cats ever since. With intelligence comes the capacity for individuality and for play. Even adult cats take time to satisfy their curious and playful instincts. Maybe this is what keeps them one jump ahead of their quarry. The clownish-looking coati-mundi shares the jaguar's habitat, seldom as competitor, but sometimes as prey. The coati is no easy clown, but a fierce fighter. Perhaps one measure of intelligence is knowing when to quit. Or perhaps intelligent predators have the faculty of memory. Something reminds them that there are easier ways to make a living. But none of nature's ways is ever really easy. Jaguars, like all big cats, are feared by man because they're more powerful than he is. As a result, they have been hunted mercilessly. No doubt their numbers will continue to decline. They will probably never reclaim any of their former range in our desert Southwest. Similar to the jaguar only in name and habitat, the jaguarundi is the most secretive and mysterious of cats. A relatively small cat, the jaguarundi's long body and flat face give it an intriguing otter-like appearance, and it does swim well. Once tamed by Mayan Indians to control rodents, it's capable of tackling much larger prey, and despite short legs, can sprint after its quarry for up to a mile. Like all the elusive cats, the jaguarundi has many secrets that we've yet to uncover. The margay is one of two wild cats that look like mini jaguars. The other is the ocelot, which weighs about 25 pounds to the margay's 10. They are both endangered, and both are rarely seen. A spotted coat provides good camouflage in the Texas scrubland where they hunt. But this handsome pelt is the main reason for their endangerment. Another reason, ironically, is the ocelot's placid temperament. Curious, almost friendly, they have been found to make good pets. But a wild animal's place is in the wild. Amiable as the ocelot may look, it keeps its distance from man. An all-around athlete as well as master hunter, it climbs and swims equally well. Ocelots are among the few wild cats that hunt in pairs. Male and female stay together long past the mating season, and sometimes for several seasons. Even more unusual among cats is for the male to help feed and train the young. Even in prides of African lions, the male seldom raises a paw to help. And the bobcat, like most carnivores, rears her young alone. The bobcat is presently the most widespread of North American cats. Its southern range overlaps the northern range of the ocelot. Given the bobcat's temper, an occasional spat is inevitable. Fortunately, the ocelot is of a milder disposition. Wildcats mark their territories by defecating or urinating along the boundaries. That usually serves to keep the peace. A bobcat's natural curiosity makes it easy to trap. In recent years, thousands have been killed to fill the demand for fun furs. But its coat is of poor value, except to the bobcat. Smaller than the lynx, and not so restricted in diet, it will tackle any prey from insects to deer. As with other predators, the bobcat stands accused of stealing from man. An occasional chicken dinner is hard to pass up. But the bobcat more than pays its way by efficient control of rabbits and rodents. But what about playing with its prey? Can this creature be as cruel as it is beautiful? Only humans can feel another animal's fright and pain, and only we can pass judgment on other species. But our own appetites are no kinder, no less demanding on the environment. The cat's play is directly tied to its hunting skills and to the very stimulus that makes it hunt. To contemplate this exquisitely graceful creature as a fellow predator is to gain insight into ourselves and to understand nature on the fullest and richest of her own terms. As humans, we share the highest level in nature's food chain with a variety of other large predators, each of which must be either mentally or physically superior to its prey. Even though they represent evolutionary perfection, many of our fellow predators are feared and misunderstood, especially the elusive and solitary members of the cat family. Maybe it's because we often dislike the other animals, like cats, which must kill to eat, even though we're predators ourselves. Or maybe it's because we view their secretive lives as slightly spooky. Whatever our feelings, within the natural scheme of things, there will always be an important place for the beautiful and deadly wild cats. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America. I'm Marty Stouffer. If you walk through a forest anywhere in North America, you're likely to hear the scolding chatter of a tree squirrel. These lively creatures are among our most visible wild animals. We watch squirrels in city parks and in our backyards, collecting nuts and acorns to store for the winter. But how much do we really know about their life in the wild? From tiny red squirrels to husky fox squirrels, these treetop acrobats come in a wide range of sizes and colors. Let's take a look at the unusual and often unseen behavior of these bushy-tails. Squirrels are highly specialized. They are adapted to the treetops, as are few other mammals. With sharp hook-like claws for clinging to bark,
and a large fluffy tail for balance, they are well equipped for life above ground. One of the most notable characteristics of squirrels is their compatibility with humans. They arouse our sense of wonder, and they amuse us with their gravity-defying acrobatics. Squirrels were not always as popular as they are today. During colonial times, gray squirrels were so abundant that they threatened the crops of pioneer farmers, especially their corn. It's been estimated that before the dense eastern hardwoods were cleared for farmland, 1 billion gray squirrels roamed the forests. In the 1700s, bounties were imposed to control these voracious pests. A few colonies even accepted squirrel scalps as payment for taxes. Colonists became such marksmen from shooting squirrels that they later devastated the ranks of British soldiers during the American Revolution. Only a small fraction of the once enormous gray squirrel population exists today, but they are still the most familiar of all the North American squirrels. Even more common than the gray squirrel, yet rarely seen, is the nocturnal flying squirrel. This species is our smallest squirrel, weighing only 2 to 3 ounces. The Douglas squirrel, below, also called chicory, inhabits the coniferous forests of our Pacific Northwest. The red squirrel, above, makes up for its small size by being the noisiest. The versatile gray squirrel, so named for its salt and pepper fur, is equally at home in woodland, suburb, or city park. The ponderosa pine forests of the western U.S. are home to the beautiful tassel-eared squirrels, the Abert squirrel on the right, and the darker kaibab squirrel on the left. The fox squirrel is the largest of all, weighing up to 3 pounds. This species exhibits a wide variety of color phases. The best season to observe squirrels is autumn, when most of their time is spent foraging on the ground, collecting nuts and seeds. Like the fox squirrel, chipmunks also store food for the winter. Some of their favorites are acorns, hickory nuts, beech nuts, walnuts, and maple seeds. It was once believed that squirrels could remember where they buried each nut, but experiments indicate that, within a half hour, they forget these locations. Now we know they find food buried under leaves and even snow by using their keen sense of smell. Ironically, the nuts that squirrels eventually dig up aren't necessarily the same ones they buried. With abundant food, the squirrels fatten quickly. Their extra weight will sustain them through the lean months ahead. Gray squirrels are equally industrious. One ambitious bushy-tail can bury thousands of nuts and seeds by the time winter arrives. Each squirrel works fast and furious to hoard its food supply, for the competition is intense. Deer, bears, hogs, and turkeys also feast on the nutritious mast. Both fox and gray squirrels are found throughout the entire eastern half of the United States. They've also been released into parts of the West. The adaptable gray squirrel has even been introduced into England, where it now drives out the native red squirrels. Autumn is a time of restlessness for most animals, and the tree squirrels are no exception. Juveniles, born during February or March, must leave their birthplaces and find a home of their own. During this fall shuffle, the inexperienced young often fall prey to hawks, bobcats, foxes, and martins. Human hunters also stalk the colorful woods. Squirrels outwit their predators, human and otherwise, by hiding behind a tree trunk until the danger passes. Approximately 40 million squirrels are shot annually by hunters. While overhunting can reduce populations in isolated woodlots, squirrel numbers are more influenced by severe weather and disease. With the threat gone, the juveniles resume their playful games. All too soon, the fall colors slip away. Only the high-pitched bark of a red squirrel pierces the hush of the winter woods. In cold weather, squirrels are rarely seen in the open. Even so, they don't hibernate like their ground squirrel cousins. The red squirrel of our northern evergreen forests avoids the icy winds by digging a network of tunnels under the snow. White-footed mice also seek shelter in the squirrel's tunnels. red squirrel is the most territorial of all the tree squirrels, with good reason. It caches nuts and pine cones in one pile, which must then be protected from other hungry rodents. In late December, the mating season is ushered in by a chorus of chattering squirrels. Their courtship involves more fighting than courting. Males will chase a female for hours in a frenzied attempt to mate with her. Though unwilling to mate at first, the female leaves scent marks along the branches, enticing her suitors to follow. Several males join in the chase and fight one another for mating privileges. It's believed that the female's protests serve to intensify the competition between males. The stronger the competition, the better her chances are that the strongest, most dominant male will persevere. An albino gray squirrel watches the commotion from a nearby tree. Besides eliminating the weaker or inexperienced males as potential mates, the ritualized mating chases also stimulate ovulation in the female. The males are polygamous, meaning they will mate with as many females as they can catch. The interbreeding between normal grays and albinos may produce offspring that are gray, white, or even pure black. These color variations are simply genetic mutations in their pigment and apparently have no bearing in matters of courtship. While the gray squirrels range from white to black, fox squirrels exhibit an even greater diversity of fur color. The greatest, in fact, of any North American mammal. For now, this male gives up the chase and settles for a sweet taste of tree sap. Squirrels are members of the largest order of mammals, the rodents. Fossil evidence suggests that rodents originated in North America and evolved into many different species from a common squirrel-like ancestor. Rodents proved so adaptable that they invaded almost every major ecological niche in an amazingly brief span of about 2 million years. The appearance of springtime flowers, mushrooms, and tree buds provides a banquet for the woodland creatures. This female fox squirrel returns to her den to nurse her 4-week-old young, snuggled beneath a blanket of leaves. A male fox squirrel, with no parental responsibilities, continues to dine on the succulent buds. While male and juvenile squirrels are very social and often den together, neither are tolerated in the same nest as a female with young. Tree squirrels are most active at dusk and dawn, with one exception. As the moon rises, flying squirrels begin their nighttime forays, gliding from tree to tree like furry kites. The flying squirrel's name is a misnomer, since it can't fly, but it can glide up to 50 feet by spreading the loose flaps of skin along its sides. Like most squirrels, they nest in natural tree cavities or abandoned woodpecker holes. When fleas and other parasites become intolerable, the female moves her litter to a new den. A baby finds comfort in its fresh bed of shredded bark. Tree squirrels normally produce one litter a year, but if food is plentiful, they will nest twice, once in early spring and again in midsummer, after the young from the first litter leave the nest. A typical litter for flying squirrels is 3, but there may be anywhere from 2 to 6 young. The baby squirrels are weaned at 8 to 9 weeks, but they may remain with their mother for up to 3 months. Young tree squirrels take longer to develop than most other mammals their size. This ensures that their coordination and eyesight are highly developed by the time they face life on their own. About 10,000 years ago, a species of tassel-eared squirrel inhabited the forests of the American Southwest. As the Kaibab Plateau rose on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, the squirrels there became geographically isolated from those on the south rim. 2 subspecies eventually evolved. The more common and widespread of the tassel-eared squirrels is the Abert squirrel. Its range overlaps that of the ponderosa pine, on which it depends for food and cover. Besides eating the pine cone seeds, the squirrels survive the critical months of winter eating the cambium, or inner bark of the ponderosa. They also eat truffles, a subterranean fungi. Truffles enhance the health of the forest by providing moisture and nutrients to the pine tree's roots. The squirrels help spread the fungi by leaving spores in their droppings. It's a three-way relationship that helps to propagate the fungi and the pine trees while providing food for the squirrels. Living at an elevation of 6,000 to 9,000 feet, their mating season begins as late as April or May. The young are born about 40 days later. A subspecies of the aberts, the kaibab squirrel, was cut off from its ancestral population by the Grand Canyon to the south and treeless deserts to the east, north, and west. Separated, they evolved distinctive characteristics such as a dark gray belly and pure white tail. But the kaibab too depends on the ponderosa pine. As with other members of its family, mating is preceded by a high-speed chase through the forest. The kaibab squirrel provides scientists with a rare look at how geographic isolation affects an animal's development. The few miles which separate the kaibab and abert squirrels can be measured in thousands of years of evolution. We tend to give more attention to rare or seldom seen animals. Yet, however common, squirrels are no less important. We should value tree squirrels not only for their unique role in nature, but also for the touch of wildness they bring to our civilized world. Squirrels provide us with a close-up look at nature. We enjoy watching their aerial antics, and we benefit from them in another, less obvious way. Since every buried seed or nut is a potential tree, the health of our woodlands is enhanced by these industrious rodents. As long as their habitat is preserved, forests will always resound with the persistent chatter of bushy-tails. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America. I'm Marty Stouffer. Ground squirrels are some of our most prolific creatures. Adapted to nearly every habitat in North America, they're plucky, lively, and entertaining. And while they often come into conflict with humans, they provide a vital link in nature's food chain. Without ground squirrels, a whole variety of predators, from ferrets to foxes to grizzly bears, would find their dinner tables empty. Join me as we learn why ground squirrels are much more than just little varmints. This is a ground squirrel. There are about 50 squirrel species in North America, so it can get confusing. A least chipmunk feeds near a golden-mantled ground squirrel. Both are squirrels, but the sometimes arboreal chipmunk is not a ground squirrel. True ground squirrels, like this 13-lined, live on and under the ground. But this too can lead to confusion. A pocket gopher is also a ground-dwelling rodent, active day and night, but it's not a ground squirrel. And ground squirrels are not, as commonly called, gophers. Ground squirrels are diurnal, active only during the day. As autumn days shorten, ground squirrels get ready to take a very long nap. They collect soft, dry grasses for a cozy nest and stock up on the summer's bounty of seeds for snacking. Then they prepare to settle into their burrows to hibernate through the long, cold winter. The Brooks Range of northern Alaska is home to the world's champion hibernator, not just of ground squirrels, but of all mammals. The Arctic ground squirrel's body temperature actually drops below freezing when it hibernates. At the University of Alaska, scientists are studying what makes the Arctic ground squirrel tick.
Here's 9309.
What was his body temperature when you took him out?
Let's see. He's at -1 Celsius.
So he's a degree below freezing. How long has he been hibernating?
About 15 days.
Wonder which bout he's in. It's probably about the third bout of hibernation about to arouse. Well, why don't we go ahead and record the arousal? I think he's probably at this midpoint in the hibernation season. So his body temperature has gone from high levels in the fall down into these bouts of torpor, all the way down to below freezing, the lowest temperature ever measured in a hibernator. But he's always returning back up to these high body temperatures during the arousals, and that's what he's about to do now.
Surprisingly, they rouse because they need to sleep. And to sleep, they must get their brain and body temperature up to normal. Changes in blood chemistry allow the squirrels to drop below freezing without ice forming in blood and tissue, and then to rouse again. A sophisticated body clock tells the squirrels when winter is over, and they head for the surface. The squirrels emerge from their burrows early in April. Males appear first, followed by females a week or so later. They weigh only half of what they weighed when they entered hibernation. April in Alaska is still wintry, and there's not much available food for any animals. Hibernation is not the only interest of scientists at the University of Alaska's Arctic Research Institute. As winter hibernation ends, a minute tag is attached to each individual so they can be identified. A Additionally, paint markings make for easier recognition in the field. Once they're released, studies attempt to determine mating and feeding habits, patterns of activity and sleep, and relationships with other species. One of the fascinating things we've learned is that females are only fertile one day a year. And it's important that they do breed, since they are prey for many predators. The massive grizzly bear is one species for which the squirrels must be especially alert. Bears catch most squirrels in summer, when the tundra is soft and easier to dig, and when there is an abundance of young, inexperienced animals. A significant percentage of a bear's diet is composed of ground squirrels. In Alaska, an adult bear will catch about 200 squirrels per year. It's not always an easy meal. Bears are only successful in about 15% of their digs, which makes for happy ground squirrels. The unlucky ones provide the bears with a food source high in fat and protein. Over millennia of human presence in the Arctic, parka squirrels, as they are also called, became a vital part of Eskimo life. In some areas, they remain so today. The ancient bond between people and animals is still important.
I think only few ladies make this kind of parky. These are from squirrel skin. What I do right now is same kind of these skins. They used long ago from reindeer lakes for sewing.
We're still in Stone Age, some parts.
Shishmaref Island lies off the northwest coast of Alaska, just below the Arctic Circle. Many people here wear a warm squirrel parka when they tend their ice fishing holes. The art of making squirrel parkas is dying out, as fewer native peoples live traditional lives. "2,000 miles south, on the Dakota prairies, Richardson's ground squirrels make their home. They also hibernate and emerge in early February. After catching up on food requirements, they begin to prepare for the next generation. Born in May, after a 28-day gestation period, these day-old babies are typical of newborn ground squirrels: blind, deaf, hairless, and completely dependent on their mother. They weigh less than 1 ounce. In just 10 days, they have fur and the incisor teeth characteristic of all rodents, but their eyelids are still closed. The young grow quickly. At 20 days, they can see and begin exploring their underground nursery. At 30 days, they look much like adults and begin eating solid food. Before long, it's time to leave the safety of the burrow. The month-old young look out on a dangerous new world, but it's also beautiful. The youngsters are caught between curiosity and caution. Hunters are all around. Quickly, the young learn to imitate their watchful mother. It's a warm June day on the grasslands. The young of predator and prey alike take time out to play. Nesting willet is alert. Richardsons eat eggs, as well as insects, small birds, other mammals, reptiles, and plants. The red fox is one of their main predators. Not that the Richardsons are easy prey. But the fox is patient and surprises an unwary young squirrel. The Richardson's plays an important role on the prairie, as it spreads seeds, controls insects, and feeds predators. On human playgrounds, ground squirrels are seen as a nuisance. They are often eliminated. In many areas, the solution has been the indiscriminate poisoning of ground squirrels in their burrows. Perhaps it's merely ignorance of the squirrel's role in our environment, but this ignorance costs the lives of squirrels and any other animal that might eat the poisoned carcasses. In the shadow of Devil's Tower, a famous wilderness landmark, another ground-dwelling rodent shows just how important these seemingly insignificant creatures can be. Black-tailed prairie dogs. These are the largest of our ground squirrels. They live in huge colonies or towns. In the complex prairie dog society, there are many different personalities. Some are loving. Some are curious. Who's this? She looks familiar. Whoa, watch it, Buster. Sorry. Some are just fat and happy, and some are grouchy. The prairie grasses make fine nesting material to prepare for the birth of young prairie dogs in March and April. The prairie dog's relationship with grass extends far beyond one of material and user. By harvesting the grass, prairie dogs keep it short. Short new grasses and forbs are sweet, tender, and easy to digest. Not surprisingly then, areas where prairie dogs make their homes draw a rich variety of herbivores to their succulent pastures. Other animals also benefit. These are burrowing owls. They nest in abandoned burrows. They hunt small rodents, lizards, and birds. Rabbits also find abandoned prairie dog burrows a good place to make a home and find a meal. Dwindling populations of black-tailed prairie dogs live in close association with the rarest North American mammal. Black-footed ferrets live exclusively in prairie dog burrows. At night, they ferret out the animal that makes up nearly 100% of their diet. Ferrets have never been numerous. Playful, yes, but not numerous. To thrive, the ferrets need to be able to catch prairie dogs. A hungry family waits for mother to bring home breakfast. The very survival of black-footed ferrets is still uncertain. What is certain is that they will not survive without a healthy prairie dog population. It's now summer in Prairie Dog Town, and its many inhabitants thrive on its bounty. Within the larger colony, prairie dogs live in extended family groups called coteries. At 6 weeks old, the young emerge from their nursery burrows. Young prairie dogs are suckled and groomed by their mothers and aunts, which also watch for danger. This summer is a wet one. Tunnels and mounds require constant attention. It's messy work. But the living is easy. There's plenty of time for play. Even Mom joins in. An adult signals danger. This is called plinking and is considered a sport by some. To the ignorant, these vital animals are just little varmints. The Sonora Desert of Arizona provides habitat for 2 ground squirrel species. Antelope squirrels have foraged in this desert terrain for millennia, unlike cardinals, which are relative newcomers. One of the smaller ground squirrel species, the antelope harvests the fruit of prickly pear cacti, a rather sticky situation requiring good balance. A larger cousin is the round-tailed ground squirrel. Both species have wildly fluctuating numbers. They feed a broad range of predators like coyotes, foxes, ringtails, weasels, golden eagles, and the resourceful Harris hawk. Alertness to potential danger is essential, even when working hard to gather bulky nesting materials. Who knows what one might meet on the journey home? Desert terrain filled with spiky cacti and brush is no easy place to hunt. Even its long legs don't give an automatic advantage to the hawk. The hawk tries to spook the squirrel with high-pitched calls. But this antelope ground squirrel waits it out. A nearby roundtail is not so wise. In this desert wilderness, natural balance is maintained. A healthy squirrel population thrives, even as it supports a majestic predator. Ground squirrels are invaluable to our ecosystems. They turn plants into fertilizer,
control the spread of weeds, aerate the soil, distribute seeds, and feed countless predators. Not to mention that they're cute and fun to watch. They have endured despite aggressive and even frenzied assaults by humans. The indiscriminate poisoning of prairie dogs and other species continues to this day. Before we wage war against ground squirrels, why not weigh the negatives against the positives? Maybe we'll all decide that they're much more than just little varmints. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America. I'm Marty Stouffer. Many of us identify with wild creatures. We think of them as free, independent of man, and able to take care of themselves. After all, that's what they've been doing for thousands of years. Through all that time, wild animals kept each other in check. When an animal increased in number, so would its predators. Natural cycles of disease and climate also helped maintain a balance. Fewer and fewer creatures now live in a world unaffected by man. Habitat, fractured by fences and highways, is being swallowed daily by suburbs and industry. In many regions, humans are the only remaining predators, and we're left with the job of managing wildlife. In the world of nature, all animals survive by feeding on other living things. In turn, all animals face threats from competition with their own kind, weather, disease, and predators. If none died,
all animals would increase at an unbelievable rate. Nature is beautiful, but not always perfect. Even so, it remains beautifully balanced. Predators, by taking diseased, injured, and unfit animals, keep prey populations healthy. This continual struggle of the hungry and the hunted creates the balance. Plants make sugar from sunlight and support herbivores, plant eaters like cottontails, which transform the plant energy into living flesh. Then a carnivore, a meat eater like the coyote, can use the energy. This energy pyramid exists because there are far more plants than herbivores and far more herbivores than carnivores. Animal populations fluctuate as the availability of their food increases and decreases. Each of these cycles takes about 10 years to complete. This food chain is just one of the many in nature. Larger species like deer also belong to food chains. Deer, of course, are herbivores. They eat plants and use the energy to build body tissue and to provide heat and motion. Predators and scavengers, to survive, must eat flesh and transform its energy into their own heat and motion. limits of a population are set by the environment in which it lives. Within those limits, the drama of survival unfolds as energy, vital to all life, is transferred. The contest for energy is not limited to wild creatures. It also includes man. The balance of nature was altered long ago when man entered the picture. He too had to hunt for food. He too had to compete. So man learned to kill the predators which threatened his food supply. And gradually, he became the greatest predator of all. Today, man still delights in the conquest of nature. Modern man continues to compete with predators, even though he no longer must hunt to survive. Most of our large wild predators have been killed off. Without them, certain prey species like the white-tailed deer will increase in number and suffer disease, stunted growth, habitat destruction, and eventually starvation. Wildlife managers seek to avoid these natural controls. They are after a sustainable yield, which can only be achieved by keeping deer populations in check. But how many is too many? Biologists try to discover the number of deer per acre which specific habitats can sustain. Making use of current technology, they put radio transmitters on the deer. Then, with a radio receiver, they monitor deer movement and survival. Deer get much attention because they're popular game animals and because hunting, through licenses and taxes on equipment, supplies most management funds. Finding a stricken deer, this biologist checks for signs of injury or disease. She'll take a bone marrow sample to confirm that the cause of death was malnutrition. In the opinion of some, hunting offers a kinder death than starvation. A large part of managing wildlife involves the limiting of animal populations through hunting by humans. Though sometimes controversial, hunting does control animal numbers. And it clearly provides much of the support which makes all wildlife management possible. This method is based on the concept that game can be harvested as long as enough breeding stock remains to produce another crop of similar size the following year. Yet thousands of animals continue to starve each winter, their numbers too great for the available food supply. Another management technique is winter feeding. I've brought alfalfa to help the elk during a hard winter.
Back up, Hannah. Take a step back.
It's a tough job, though enjoyable, with the right attitude. Winter feeding is a temporary solution at best. It can't reach remote herds, and it concentrates those it can reach, which may mean outbreaks of disease. But the biggest criticism is that wildlife comes to depend on man. Yet in hard winters, these animals won't survive any other way. The human animal is the most dangerous of all species. It's the only one to destroy hundreds of other life forms and to pollute air and water. Yet this creature is also the most talented, with the power to preserve rather than plunder, to treasure rather than destroy. The very technology that can be so harmful is used by today's managers to survey and transplant wildlife. Here's another management solution. Pronghorn are being moved from an area they've overpopulated to a new range. These pronghorn are part of a success story. Through transplant projects like this one, their once depleted numbers are now greatly expanded. Wildlife management is an ongoing and difficult process. Before any project like this can be successful, an animal's needs, habits, reproductive rate, and adaptability to man must be known. Saving an animal's life is costly and time-consuming. Great care is taken, like clipping their horns, to prevent travel injuries. The goal of management is to balance the needs of wildlife with the needs of humans. We too have expanded our range and spread out well beyond our cities. As a result, habitat loss is now a far greater problem than even the loss of predators. Industry, agriculture, and housing are claiming hundreds of millions of acres a year. Wetlands are the richest and most productive of our habitats, yet they're often thought of as wastelands, better drained and filled for human expansion. They're disappearing at an alarming rate. Though rapidly declining, a habitat this rich will still allow some species, like the raccoon, to greatly increase. When food, shelter, and water are abundant, most offspring survive, which means overpopulation. Too many of a given species will deplete even a healthy habitat and threaten the food supply of other animals. Sometimes there are more problems than our wildlife agencies can solve on their own, and in certain cases, private groups are permitted to help. These men have permission to trap over-plentiful raccoons in Florida. The animals are being shipped to Tennessee and the Carolinas. The handling of these raccoons in crowded cages is surely unappealing to some. But if they're left in an overcrowded natural habitat, most will soon be dead anyway. Once again, the solution to a problem situation is almost as controversial as the problem itself. In the Appalachian Mountains, coon hunting is a popular sport, so these animals will be sold to hunting clubs. The less productive mountain habitat, along with coon hunters and their dogs, will keep raccoon numbers down. Wildlife habitat is invaluable. Its destruction has far-reaching effects. Regardless of views for or against hunting, all who care about the wild need to work together for habitat preservation. With every acre of habitat lost, our more than 300 national wildlife refuges become all the more important. At Crescent Lake in Nebraska, bull snakes devour many waterfowl eggs. Because ducks are favorite game animals, they're some of our most managed wildlife. Though it eats valuable duck eggs, the bull snake is also important as a well-known predator of rodents. Managers study the bull snake so they can control this predator rather than exterminate it. They know that depleting one species upsets the balance of the entire ecosystem. To help the waterfowl by controlling one of their predators, Crescent Lake managers have invented and built snake traps. The long wings direct hunting snakes into the trap itself. The researchers use the latest in technological advances to learn about the snake's habits. After capturing a snake, it's bagged and taken to refuge headquarters, where the research team will carefully anesthetize it and implant a small radio transmitter into its belly. The transmitter is small enough to not alter the snake's behavior. After the procedure, the snake is then turned loose and followed to its hole by the radio signals. We're now learning that we can have valuable predators like the bull snake and save their prey as well. The hole is flagged for further study of the snake's habits. This elevated Canada goose nest was designed to protect it from snakes, raccoons, weasels, and others. There are no easy answers or permanent solutions. The challenge for the future is to protect our remaining wildlife habitat. Arguments can cloud over the real problems and waste energy. Non-hunters condemn hunting. Industry attacks conservationists. Yet it's to everyone's benefit to preserve the natural world's beauty and diversity. Experts tell us that good environmental management is good business, that we don't have to pit nature against technology. Instead, we can use technology to create a healthy world for all creatures. It's a difficult but necessary work, the vital task of managing wildlife. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America. I'm Marty Stouffer. The most widely distributed mammal in North America is the muskrat. This medium-sized rodent lives anywhere it can find plant food and still water. A diligent worker, it's always swimming, digging, or eating. Beady-eyed and all business, it can be quarrelsome. The muskrat reminds me of a grouchy old man. But it's very well dressed. Its waterproof suit of dense, glistening fur makes it North America's most valuable fur bearer. Let's pay a visit to Old Man Muskrat. In wetlands from Louisiana to Alaska, dome-shaped muskrat houses dot the landscape. In winter, the tops of these structures are the only evidence that life exists beneath the frozen marsh. Our story begins with the return of spring, as we take a rare glimpse into the private world of muskrats. Muskrats are adapted to life in the water in much the same way as beavers. Often muskrats are mistaken for beavers. One way to tell them apart is by the materials they use to build their nests. Beavers build their lodges using logs, branches, and mud. Muskrats prefer to use aquatic plants, such as cattails and bulrush. Inside their house, a hollow nesting chamber is accessible only by an underwater entrance. Much of the springtime is spent piling up vegetation to repair their winter quarters or to build a new house. The dense cattail stands of Minnesota provide an ideal habitat for these semi-aquatic mammals, and a perfect backdrop for cinematographer Steve Krushel to observe and film muskrat behavior. This muskrat is more interested in collecting nesting material than in posing for Steve. And what better to build with than some camouflage netting? With a splash, the muskrat disappears, only to resurface in the hidden sanctuary of its house. This ability to vanish at the slightest hint of trouble has no doubt led to the success of its kind. In fact, the muskrat is so successful at surviving that it often becomes its own worst enemy. Population explosions, called eat-outs, are a regular occurrence in a muskrat marsh. This pond, on an Ohio farm, supports a large number of muskrats. The close proximity of houses belies the muskrat's antisocial nature. But their social behavior does vary greatly, depending on how well fed they are. The more food to go around, the more goodwill is displayed toward one another. Their diet includes the roots and stems of cattails, bulrushes, and other aquatic plants, as well as clams, snails, crayfish, frogs, and carrion. Coots also find this pond an inviting habitat. While the female coot tends to her offspring, the male gathers cattail stalks to enlarge their nesting platform. Inside the muskrat's dry, grass-lined nest, a litter of newborns await their next meal of rich milk. Northern muskrats usually raise 2 large litters a year, while those in the south may have 3 or more smaller litters. Muskrats are not exactly model parents. Many babies are abandoned by their mother, while still others are preyed upon by their father. Mass reproduction, rather than parental care, is the rule. Sharing the same preference for nesting materials, the coot takes advantage of this ready-made supply. Muskrats indirectly benefit waterfowl in another way. By cutting down vegetation, they open up areas in marshes that would otherwise be too dense for birds such as ducks to feed and nest. A muskrat's childhood is both fleeting and dangerous. They open their eyes at 2 weeks. By 1 month, they're completely weaned. This litter has another week to go before they're driven away from the nest by their mother. As with any wild baby, exploration is a vital part of growing up. A painted turtle basking at the water's edge proves irresistible to this youngster's curiosity. If this had been a large snapping turtle, the inexperienced muskrat would have made an easy meal. Turtles, hawks, snakes, and mink certainly take their toll, but one of the greatest threats is flooding. High water can drown an entire litter. Another unwary sibling leaves the nest to inspect its odd neighbor. The turtle responds to this intrusion in the usual way, by retreating into its mobile home. The lush wetlands of New Hampshire support a wide variety of creatures, including the majestic moose. A nearby muskrat grooms to keep its summer coat in top condition. Despite its long list of predators, the muskrat shows little fear of other animals. Apparently nothing stands in its way, not even a moose. Another member of this aquatic community is the mink. These skillful hunters are the muskrat's #1 predator. If trapped inside the nest, young or inexperienced muskrats are easy prey for the mink. A full-grown muskrat outside the nest is another matter. Not only is the muskrat a superior swimmer, but it's a scrappy fighter as well. When swimming underwater, muskrats will occasionally stop and freeze among the aquatic plants, a behavior most likely intended to confuse attackers. The calls of migrating geese proclaim a change of seasons. The animals that live here instinctively know that the bounty of this lake, the insects, crustaceans, and clams, will soon be locked in ice. While many animals will have to search for food elsewhere, the muskrat will remain and make its living beneath the ice. A raccoon foraging in the shallow water attracts the attention of a curious muskrat. The muskrat is not a congenial creature, and it often pesters other animals that wander into its territory. By late fall, marshes are usually overrun with muskrats, and many of these animals migrate up to 20 miles to seek out new habitat. On land, a muskrat is much more vulnerable, so its disposition is particularly unfriendly. While a moose poses little threat, any animal is considered a potential enemy by these edgy rodents. A sharp set of teeth is certainly a good weapon to have, but it's of little protection against a freezing storm. Exposed to the elements and to predators, few muskrats survive these migrations. Yet the pioneering muskrat continues its trek through marsh and meadow, looking for unoccupied territory with plenty of food and water. These migratory habits are probably responsible for their broad distribution on this continent and more recently in Europe. Muskrats are found in every state except Florida. A group of curious cows go for a closer look. Despite its name and long, scaly tail, the muskrat is not a rat. It's more closely related to a field mouse. But it definitely reeks of musk, an odor produced by scent glands for marking trails and attracting mates. While migrating, hordes of muskrats, less fortunate than this one, are killed on highways. In the distance, a winding river marks the journey's end for the weary traveler. But the dangers are far from over. setting up home along a stream bank requires a different type of nest construction. Since piled-up vegetation would wash away, muskrats dig underwater dens into the bank, with interior chambers situated above the high water line. By December, this once thriving environment has become inhospitable. But muskrats are one of the few creatures that are well equipped for it. Under the ice, they can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes. And they're protected from hypothermia by their thick waterproof fur, an asset for which some individuals pay a high price. The muskrat winter coat, with its soft underfur and long glossy guard hairs, is highly sought after by trappers. Disturbed by the noise outside its house, the occupant swims away, but it will return after the trapper leaves. A muskrat pelt is actually less valuable than those of the other major fur bearers. However, the commercial demand for these pelts per volume is the greatest of any species. An annual muskrat fur crop of about 10 million skins is valued at $35 million. This trapper uses a conibear trap to catch muskrats inside their house. In recent years, conibears have replaced the steel leg-hold trap, at least for muskrat trapping. Designed to kill an animal quickly, these traps are considered much more humane. The next morning, the trapper returns to collect his catch. Muskrats are trapped not only for their fur, but also as food. Their meat is often marketed under the names marsh hare or Chesapeake terrapin. Probably because muskrat sounds unenticing, furriers have also used a variety of names to sell its fur. Names such as Red River seal, Hudson seal, and even river mink. Back at his house, the trapper prepares the skins for market. Beaver pelts are nailed into a circle on a flat board, while muskrat pelts are stretched on a wire frame. This prolific little mammal triumphs, despite the demands of the fashion world and the dangers of life in the wild. Trappers take 10 million a year, but the muskrat continues to flourish. While nature creates balance on one front, man invades on another. Our wetlands are often thought of as wastelands, better drained and filled. Fortunately, we're beginning to realize that the wetlands are one of our most productive habitats, haven for a wealth of wildlife, including the grumpy but intriguing old man muskrat. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America. I'm Marty Stouffer. Why is it that animals with unusual markings seem to hold special significance for us? We're fascinated by the jaguar's spots, the skunk's stripes, and the raccoon's mask and ringed tail. Maybe it's because these characteristic markings enable us to identify them easier. And they even add an extra dimension to their personalities. Most of us recognize a raccoon when we see one, and because of its strange markings, most of us think of it as fun-loving or even mischievous. But what about the raccoon's relatives, the nosy coati-mundi, which looks like a stretched-out version of a raccoon? And the graceful little ringtail, it looks like a cross between a squirrel and a fox. These creatures are all closely related, and all of them are known for their distinctive markings. But the question is, are they all ring-tailed rascals? If curiosity is a measure of intelligence, the raccoon must be among the smartest of wild animals. But the raccoon's insatiable curiosity and its appetite often lead to trouble. Its skull and teeth classify the raccoon as a carnivore, but it's omnivorous and will eat almost anything it can get its paws on. The raccoon finds much of its food in the water. But the female Canada goose senses that this male raccoon would be just as happy to enjoy a meal on land. His casual attitude does not hide the fact that eggs and even young hatchlings are a favorite treat. This masked bandit knows exactly what he's after and is bold enough to risk the consequences. An adult raccoon can be a fierce fighter and has few enemies besides man. But this one, though persistent, seems to know that he's the intruder and no match for a pair of geese defending their nest. Perhaps another measure of intelligence is adaptability. Evidence of the raccoons adapting can be seen in the fact that they are found in every one of the lower 48 states, and from Canada down into Central America. This adaptability begins with diet. Near New York City, on Long Island, this one makes a meal of mussels. It might also raid a nearby hen house and nibble in the farmer's orchard for dessert. The raccoon's diet varies with region and season. From crayfish and insects to acorns and berries, it eats whatever it can gather or whatever it can catch. Unlike other mammals, the raccoon's most highly developed sense is that of touch. It often depends on its almost human hands to locate its food. But it is a carnivore. A hollow tree is its favorite den, and this cottontail rabbit is unlucky enough to be caught in the wrong place. In southeastern states, such as Florida and Georgia, alligator and turtle eggs are frequently an easy meal. Adult alligators spend the night in the water to hunt and to maintain their cold-blooded bodies at a constant temperature. This means that the female must leave her eggs unguarded during the hours when raccoons are most active. Just as the raccoon is a hunter, so it in turn becomes the hunted. Coon hunting with hounds is a popular sport for more than 1 million people all across the country. Yet the raccoon population seems to be stable.
I mentioned these are all class-winning dogs. This will be showing the best breed.
Class-winning males back.
This senior
Almost any dog will chase a raccoon, but several breeds, like black and tan, red bone, and blue tick, are raised especially for their keen sense of smell, their baying voice, and their stamina on the trail.
Again, you walk with the male, said that finished his dog. And instead of beating someone else out of the show, he withdrew his dog from the show now. He doesn't need to point, so he doesn't want to take the show away from someone else. That's a sportsmanlike thing to do. I'm going to front dog.
Like other forms of hunting, the coon chase is now regulated by laws which differ widely in their success at protecting the raccoon. Increasingly, the object of the hunt is no longer the kill, but the excitement and thrill of the chase. The most severe test of adaptability for any wild creature is its ability to accommodate the increasing pressures of civilization. At this, the raccoon excels. In some places, it can be a nuisance. Cut down the woods to build a home, and you may find one taking up residence in your chimney. Pave over a cornfield, and one may steal the cherry pie cooling on your windowsill. Even covered trash cans, unless the lids are tied down tightly, are no match for the prying fingers of these nosy rascals. If the raccoon is nosy, you might expect its cousin, the coati, with its prominent pig-like snout, to be even more inquisitive. In North America, the coati's habitat had been limited to the rocky grasslands and brushy woods of southern Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. But due to the destruction of predators, in recent years, the coati has slowly extended its range north and east. Among this animal's most recognizable features are its long, faintly ringed tail and its tough, sensitive snout. The nose functions much as do the raccoon's front paws, that is, for getting into everything. With it, the coati gets to know its relatives and grubs for roots and insects, fruits and lizards, even an occasional turtle. The coati is also the only truly social member of the raccoon family and usually travels in gregarious, noisy groups of 10 or more individuals of all ages. During the breeding season, the strongest male drives off rivals from his group and enjoys the harem to himself. Each female goes off alone to bear her litter of from 4 to 6 young, rejoining the group when the babies are about 5 weeks of age and old enough to travel. The babies look cuddly and clownish, but an adult coati is, like the raccoon, a tough and scrappy fighter. The mother coati has much to teach her babies. And it might take a bit of practice in shallow pools like this one before the babies are as proficient swimmers as their parents. Sometimes the long way around really is the easiest. The rocky gullies and canyons of our southwestern states are home to what I consider the most attractive member of the raccoon family, the little ringtail. With its large, bright eyes and pointed fox-like face. It ranges from Mexico northward through California to Oregon, and eastward through Texas as far as Louisiana and Missouri. Though not uncommon throughout this area, it's extremely shy, nocturnal, and therefore rarely seen. Much smaller than the raccoon or coati, the ringtail waits until owls and other predators have eaten their fill, and then it ventures out during the late night hours to hunt. In some areas, the territories of ringtails and raccoons overlap. Since the ringtail is just as omnivorous as the raccoon, they may even compete for food. Worse, the raccoon may attempt to prey on young ringtails. But though the ringtail is much smaller and more timid than the raccoon, when its young are threatened, it stands its ground. The ringtail feeds on such things as lizards, toads, fruit, insects, even bats. It especially loves figs and dates, but mice are the staple item in its diet. Pound for pound, it's probably a better mouser than most cats. During the gold rush days, miners often kept ringtails around as pets, for company, but especially to rid their camps of rats and mice. One of the ringtail's common names is miner's cat. Among its enemies is the swift fox, which also enjoys mice, but would just as soon dine on a ringtail or its young. But some families are lucky enough to have a larger cousin happen along for the rescue. Actually, the raccoon simply considers the fox an intruder and a competitor. Though the raccoon would not normally attack the fox with the intention of eating it, as the true ring-tailed rascal of the family, he seems to enjoy chasing it for fun. It's as if these two are playing a game for their wide-eyed audience. In our eastern states, as summer turns to autumn, and autumn gives way to winter, a raccoon's instincts turn to a different kind of game, the mating season. But, as is often the case, too much curiosity makes it hard to pay attention to the business at hand. A younger male senses that he might have a chance. Male raccoons are promiscuous, breeding with as many females as they find receptive. The female, on the other hand, will mate with only the one male that she finds acceptable. first it seems that neither the young male's rival nor the object of his attentions will take him very seriously. But battle is often part of nature's mating game. Perhaps it's even the stimulation needed by the male in order to mate. And sooner or later, the weaker rival will be driven off. The mating season begins as early as January in the south and as late as March in the north. When the female has accepted her mate, they will stay together for up to a week, feeding, sleeping, and mating frequently. Afterwards, the male moves on to find other receptive females, while this one settles down to await the arrival of her litter. The young, usually 2 to 7 of them, are born fully furred, complete with black mask and tail rings. Right from birth, their curiosity makes them a new generation of mischief makers.
I suspect that most of us would like to get to know wild animals better. But the more we get to know them, the more we see how different they are. Different from each other, and different from our first notions about them. The raccoon is a masked bandit, but also works hard for a living. The coati-mundi is a funny-looking clown, but also an elegant swimmer. The ringtail is a recluse, but one with strong family ties. Another fascinating aspect of the raccoon and its relatives is the way each member combines the curious traits of other animals: cat, bear, fox, and even monkey. Perhaps in them we see a reminder of ourselves, and the joke is on us, which is why I like to call them ring-tailed rascals. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America.
I'm Marty Stouffer. The goshawk is the largest of America's accipiters, a group of 3 long-tailed, short-winged hawks. Its main prey is the equally short-winged and thus equally fast ruffed grouse, sometimes called a pheasant or partridge, although it actually is neither. The goshawk was originally named goosehawk by the European falconers who used it to hunt geese. It could be more appropriately called grousehawk because no other predator pursues the hard-to-catch ruffed grouse with such supreme skill. But catching a grouse is not easy. They stay constantly alert. With formidable beak and talons, the goshawk is the essence of capture, while the grouse has perfected escape. Over the years, a precise balance has developed between these 2 birds. They are intimately linked in an age-old relationship, and this is their story, as seen in this aspen forest of the Pacific Northwest. Let's look at the hunted and its hunter, the grouse and the goshawk. This is Crater Lake in Oregon. It's the deepest, clearest, bluest body of water in North America. The core of an ancient volcano, it's located at the southern end of the Cascade Mountain Range. Traveling north into Washington State and past Mount Rainier, another dormant volcano, we reach the remote glacier-covered peaks of the northern Cascades. We followed the Great Cascade Mountain Range from south to north as it parallels the Pacific coast and rises up through 3 national parks. In Oregon, there's Crater Lake. In Washington State, Mount Rainier and North Cascades National Park. In the shadow of the Cascades, there live 2 birds, each a master of its own realm. The powerful goshawk rules the air. The camouflaged ruffed grouse commands the forest floor. Surprise is the goshawk's main hunting technique, but first it must watch, then wait. Its prey waits too, visible through the leafless trees of late winter. Across the North American continent, the slender aspen is the most widespread of all trees. And coinciding almost exactly with the range of aspen trees is that of the ruffed grouse. The range of the goshawk nearly matches both grouse and aspen. The trees are especially important to the ruffed grouse in early spring. That's when the long male flowers, called catkins, are eaten to the exclusion of almost every other plant food. Rich in protein, the flowers help fatten the birds for the demands of the coming mating season. Like many male birds, the grouse cock establishes his territory, but he does not sing. Instead, he drums. The drumming sound carries through the forest and reaches the female, but she's not ready to breed yet. The cock's flapping, cupped wings create a series of small vacuums, which then fill with air to produce the drumming sound. Finally, the female moves closer, drawn by the glorious display of the male. He parades and poses for her, with his head crest erected and tail feathers fanned. Also fully flared is the neck collar, or ruff, for which this species of grouse is named. After a brief mating, the hen will leave, and alone she will raise her chicks. The promiscuous cock stays behind to mate with other hens. Mixed hardwood and evergreen forest, broken by occasional brushy areas and clearings, with lakes or rivers nearby. Such is traditional grouse and goshawk country. Again, the aspen tree provides a necessity of life. Now in late spring, an aspen is the nesting place for a mated pair of goshawks. The larger female incubates their 2 eggs. Like the grouse cock that uses his same drumming log for life, so may the goshawk pair return year after year to their high, sturdy nest. Below, on the dark, cool forest floor, hidden among some ferns, is the leafy nest of the ruffed grouse. The hen has left for one of her brief but frequent foraging trips. As spring blossoms into summer, the adult grouse move from the dense heart of the forest out into the open edges. A wide variety of plant food is now available, but although food is abundant, grouse are not. They are still recovering from a low in their 10-year population cycle. No one knows exactly how or why these lows happen, but it is certain that next year will be better, and the next better yet. When grouse are scarce, so are goshawks. In high years, the female will lay as many as 5 eggs. This female laid only 2, and of her pair, only 1 hatched. But her maternal instinct is no less intense. From the time of egg laying until her youngster is nearly ready to feed itself, she lines the nest with evergreen boughs. Perhaps they help to soften and scent the nest, or maybe they're a bit of camouflage. Although it seems very vulnerable on the ground, the grouse nest would be even more exposed to predators if it were in a tree. The mother goes off to feed, leaving her eggs protected by a few ferns. The mother goshawk takes some time off too. Her mate relieves her, bringing in freshly killed prey for their offspring. Always watchful, father and young scan the nearby clearing. Most goshawk nests overlook an open area. Father tears off the meat in strips and feeds it to his ravenous downy. Hunting birds require the care of both parents, and weeks, even months of preparation for their predatory way of life. Weighing little more than a few ounces apiece, 4 of the young grouse hatchlings find safety in numbers, while the 5th shows its independence. One of the original 6 eggs never hatched, and by midsummer, another 2 or 3 of these chicks will also be gone, taken by predators or, more likely, by rain and cold. Three weeks later, the fledgling goshawk tries out its wings. Most of its soft, fluffy down has fledged into the vertically streaked plumage of a juvenile, but it won't leave the nest until it is ready to hunt on its own. Even then, it will not have an easy life, because the hunter has much more to learn than the hunted. Immediately after hatching, the grouse chicks left their nest. Adults eat plants, seeds, and berries. But the rapidly developing chicks feed entirely on insects, important protein for their first month of life. In these northern mountains, the season of plenty is short. Soon, summer's green abundance disappears into the golden days of autumn. One last shimmer of fluttering aspen leaves signals the close of another season. And all the wild creatures ready themselves for the hardships of winter. The mule deer puts on a layer of fat. The badger looks for a spot to dig in and escape the cold. By now, the goshawk is on its own, competing with other hungry predators, like this coyote. Though the goshawk must act like an adult, it still looks like a juvenile, with its brown, vertically striped breast and its yellow eyes. In a year, it will look like this adult, with blue-gray feathers and red eyes. But yellow or red, the goshawk's eyes are among the sharpest in the animal world, and they have a clear eyelid, the nictitating membrane, which allows the bird to see even when closed. Well equipped for its hunting life, the goshawk has feet that are literally meat hooks. poor for walking, yet excellent for grasping prey. But equipment is not everything. The grouse has survival tactics of its own. A young, unskilled goshawk will make many attempts before it finally succeeds in catching a grouse. This is the time when many inexperienced goshawks die. With its short, rounded wings, the goshawk can follow the grouse through the trees, but it fails to catch it. And if it fails many more times, it will starve. Icy mist hangs suspended in the frozen air, and the snow deepens as winter arrives, and the grouse move back into the heart of the forest. The goshawk waits. Because the ruffed grouse and the goshawk are so evenly matched as predator and prey, and because the young goshawk has not yet perfected its hunting skills, it must wait until it has an advantage. A grouse dives to safety. Its summer camouflage is useless now, so it must hide. But this snow roosting has another purpose: warmth. Grouse burrow into snow roosts to survive the winter nights. The goshawk's eyes are trained to detect movement. Little goes unnoticed, especially when a goshawk is hungry. Although the snow is deep, it may not be deep enough for the grouse to completely hide. Another predator also tracks the grouse, the red fox, and it has the advantage of a keen sense of smell. In winter, the fox is the major predator of snow-roosting grouse. The birds can escape fox and lynx by roosting in trees, but once there, they are open to even more predators. So the snow is still their safest haven. If the snow cover is thin, though, many grouse die when they cannot bury themselves deeply enough for safety and warmth. As one grouse dies, many others live on, some roosting in snow, others roosting on branches, close to pine needles, which are one of their few winter foods. Glowing in the light of a full moon, the starry night sky comes alive in this time lapse. It's a cold and bitter beauty, though, when the temperature drops to 40 below zero. Many grouse do survive the foxes, although this one may be greeting the new day for the last time. For the goshawk cannot abandon its way of life any more than the grouse can. To live means to kill, and the grouse is its companion in this ancient struggle. The goshawk is no more a villain than the grouse is a hero. Some believe that one animal killing another is heartless and cruel. But nature does not judge her creatures by our human emotions. Killing to survive is neither good nor bad. It's simply a way to live. And as much as our sympathy causes us to cheer for the underdog, the grouse, the goshawk is just as vulnerable to nature's laws. Young goshawks have a great deal to learn, and as many as half of them die in their first year. The ones which do survive will take their place as important predators in a balanced natural ecosystem, removing the less fit grouse from the breeding population. When spring comes again, only the best grouse will breed and perpetuate their species. And so, the most important aspect of this relationship is that death is not tragic or final, as we might see it, but instead, it's the renewal of life. Ruffed grouse seem destined for extinction about every 10 years, when their populations dramatically peak, then suddenly plummet to near zero. It's not due to goshawk predation, though, but rather is the result of a mysterious natural cycle. The grouse always recover, and overall their future appears bright, partly because they've been restocked into many areas for human hunters who enjoy the challenge they offer. Goshawks, on the other hand, are always rare across their entire range. In the past, they were persecuted by the greatest predator of all, man. Fortunately, today, All birds of prey are protected by state and federal laws, but both the grouse and the goshawk need our further protection. They need a place to live, and only we can provide that through the wise use and management of their ancestral home, the northern forests. It's up to us to determine the ending to the story of the grouse and the goshawk. I'm Marty Stouffer. Until next time, enjoy our wild America.